Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. I, 25 female, have been planning my wedding since I got engaged 9 months ago. Both my parents have been involved in helping me plan and prepare since day one. Everyone but my stepsister, Mary, 27 female, is happy for my fiancé and me. Mary and I haven't always had the best relationship. Whenever we talk, it always ends in an argument, and our friend groups are total opposites. So we never really bonded and just minded our business. Me dating and now getting married to my high school sweetheart was a punch to the gut for Mary. She hasn't ever been in a healthy, long-term relationship. The look on her face when I announced my engagement was one of obvious envy and rage. I haven't tried approaching her since. Things were going pretty smoothly, decor was complete, venue, makeup artist, etc. Everything was going exactly as I had imagined. I scheduled a hair appointment at my regular salon a week before my wedding to get my blonde roots touched up. I like to keep my hair in an ash brown shade as it suits me best, and no one does it better than my colorist, June. One thing that slightly worried me was that Mary also worked at the salon I was to go to for my hair. She has been a stylist and colorist there for 5 years, but every time I got my hair done by her, I was never happy with the outcomes. She didn't listen to what I wanted and instead did what she thought would look best. So, I switched to June and I have been happy getting my hair done by her for the past 3 years. The week before my wedding approaches, it was finally time to fix my dreadful, outgrown blonde roots. I also have a whole pampering session scheduled, including a manicure, pedicure, facial and threading. I decided to get my facial started while getting my hair done, as it seemed faster that way. Otherwise, doing everything turn by turn would take nearly 8+ hours, and I had other last-minute preparations to take care of after this. I had bleach on my face and was getting ready to have the ash brown dye put in my hair so that it could sit for as long as it needed to. June then quickly went to grab a towel to put around my neck and then came back to mix and apply the dye. As she was applying the dye very carefully, I had my eyes closed, as I usually do since I like to avoid the mirror and surprise myself with the end-styled look every time. Also, I had cream on my face that I was afraid I'd get in my eye. It wasn't until 20 minutes after the dye application I heard June gasp, the loudest gasp I have ever heard. Luckily, I didn't have anything on my face anymore, so I immediately opened my eyes and turned to look in the mirror. That's when I saw almost fully developed bright red dye all over my roots. I turned to look at June's confused face with tears running down my cheeks and caught a glimpse of Mary cutting someone's hair while smirking at me through the reflection of the mirror. I immediately knew it was her. June has never once made a mistake with my hair. June was still oblivious to what had happened and kept checking to see how she could have mixed the dye shades when they were on 2 completely different shelves. June and I tried to come up with a solution once I had stopped crying and the panic had slightly calmed down. The red was too vibrant on my blonde roots, and getting that out would require a few bleaching sessions. But after a day or two, since I had just gotten my hair dyed that day, too much dye would burn my roots. I put my hat on and walked out, pushing Mary on my way out, just to hear her giggling behind me. It is now 2 days later and I finally got my hair fixed. It took hours and hours of waiting for the bleach to lift the dye. But I'm glad June got it all out. While sitting there, waiting for June to finish blow-drying and styling my hair, I left a few nasty comments under the salon's social media pages complaining about their colorist, Mary, and attaching pictures of what I wanted versus what I got instead. The comments started blowing up and people started canceling appointments left and right. This caught the owner's attention and I heard she fired Mary right there in front of everyone, and replied to all the appointment cancellations, letting them know Mary no longer works with them. Mary got home and was furious, calling me all sorts of names and telling me that I ruined her life and that I'd regret what I did. It was then that I decided to tell Mary she was no longer invited to the wedding, and that there would be someone at the door making sure she couldn't get in. All the money spent on the dress and shoes was going down the drain, but I couldn't care less. Update. I got married and Mary wasn't there to attend, of course. Everything was beyond perfect. As for Mary, her reputation as a beautician is now ruined, and she can't get a job at any other parlor or salon. With that as her only skill, she can't find a job anywhere else either but a place like Subway where she'll be working for a while. She also just moved into my mom's basement at the age of 27 since she couldn't afford rent anymore and needed a place to stay. I'm glad your wedding went well, OP. I'm sorry about the hair disaster. I can't imagine how stressful that must have been for you, especially with your wedding day so close. Mary tried to hurt you. It was childish and mean of her. She could have been happy for you and spent a joyous day with you, but instead she destroyed her relationship with you and her job with her own hands. I really hope she has learned from her actions and she becomes a better person from this. Story 2. I know the title sounds ridiculous, but there's context. I'm currently in high school and I live with my dad and brother. My mom's not in the picture anymore. While I'm not very close with my father, he's not a bad dad. He's just a little old-fashioned, so he's closer to my brother. They have the same hobbies, etc. On to the problem. I don't know how it started, but for the past couple of months, both my dad and my brother will start teasing me about that time of the month. Anytime I get even remotely irritated or upset at them. For example, my brother ate a snack of mine that I was saving, and when I got mad, he just joked, "Oh no, is it that time again?" in a super annoying voice. I've kept trying to tell them separately and together that is really annoying and offensive, and I feel like they're totally minimizing how I feel about things I feel I had valid reasons for being annoyed about. They just brush it off even more and chalk it up to my period no matter what time of month it is. Well, yesterday we had dinner with my whole family on my dad's side for my aunt's birthday. Before the dinner, I got in a huge fight with my brother because he broke my iPad, and instead of apologizing, he just said the whole time of the month thing. I can admit that by the time we got to my grandma's house, I was pretty pissed. My cousin asked me what was wrong during dinner, and before I could explain, my brother interrupted with, "Oh, it's just lady problems." I usually just ignore him or hold things in, but I had enough and just started bawling. I can admit that I kind of went ham on purpose to cause a scene, and it freaked my whole family out. My aunt asked my dad why I was so upset, and when he didn't know, I told my aunt. It's just lady reasons according to dad and brother. My aunt and grandma were pissed at my dad and brother, and they totally got reamed at the dinner table. It was a whole thing, and I could tell they were super embarrassed. Later that night, my brother and dad said I was an a-hole for causing a scene and embarrassing them. But I said that I was just acting like how I always do. I guess I didn't have to do it during dinner, but it wasn't like I planned it. Not the a-hole, OP. They bullied and dismissed you for months. You broke your property and tried to downplay it for him to get away with it. You're a child, and a grown-ass man is bullying you, emotionally neglecting you. You need women in your family to help advocate for you because this isn't a battle you should do alone. Keep your aunt and grandma updated with everything and help them help you. Maybe talk to your dad about letting you live with either your aunt or grandma so you can have a real support system. You deserve it. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. You called them on their misogynistic bullshit. They were disrespecting you, using weapons that are hard for a young woman to battle against. They never should have done this to you. You are right for what you did, for you pushed to the end of your rope and you didn't know what else to do. I get that. Good luck, and I hope things get better. Many years ago, I made a remark to my wife about a female co-worker who was particularly irritable that day. I associated it with that day of the month in a similarly disrespectful way as you describe it. My wife unscrewed my head and screwed it back on the right way. I painfully remember this after literally several decades because it was so embarrassing. Already back then, however, I knew that I and nobody else was responsible for the embarrassment. Lesson learned. Perhaps your father and brother should develop a little humility. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. They opened the door and you charged through. They are literally using sexist, demeaning bullshit to belittle you and rug sweep. You are a child, your father is not. You needed help with their a-holish behavior and you got it. Good for you. Seriously, that was what was needed. Now get your hands on a gigantic calendar, hang it where everyone can see, mark big red X's when you have your period. When they ask why, an appropriate version of, well, F it, you two treat me like shit and blame my period when I get mad. The least I can do is give you a calendar that tells you when you are right and when you are being idiotic. Story 3. For context, I have severe physical disability, but I'm mentally fine and I rely on my mom every day as a caregiver. This morning I woke up and checked the time and realized it was later than I'm usually up. In the morning I have a routine to get up at a certain time. Although it can vary a bit, I can't start my day unassisted. Usually my mom comes in at the same time, but today she was not here, so I called her to see if she was okay. I heard the phone ring but could not hear anyone in the house, which made me worried. Next I called my brother and he did not answer as well. And I could not hear his phone ring. It was already 20 minutes past when I normally get up, and I had no texts or missed calls and I began to worry. After several minutes, I called my mom again and waited for the ringing and I heard it, but nobody there. Finally, I decided to call one of my mom's friends to see if she knew what to do, but again, no answer. At this point, I was more stressed and worried that maybe my mom had slipped or something, or hit her head, or something similar that was potentially time sensitive, so she would be unable to answer the phone. So I called police non-emergency line. I was very worried and they could hear it in my voice. I waited more minutes and they said they would send others. But during this wait, my brother phoned to let me know that my mom had to run to the store because we eliminated cat food. I asked if she had a phone and he said she must have left it at home. He was already at school and did not want to wake me up. But he had been told to by my mother to let me know she would be back soon, so it was all just confusion, no ill will. So I called back to the line for non-emergency and told them it was resolved and apologized for wasting time. But after my mom got home and I got ready, there was a worker at the door asking for her conversation and many questions about if I'm left alone often. My mother is now mad and said I needed patience and to not be worried. And I was wrong for calling anything since they are mad now. I did not mean to be wrong. I was only trying to make things okay. Am I the a-hole for this? Now for some comments. Not the a-hole, she's your caregiver. She can't simply leave and forget her phone. Your worries are completely understandable and you have nothing to apologize for. If she is being investigated for not properly caring for you after she literally left you alone and therefore unable to get up at all, that's on her. Writing a note or text would have solved this issue before it occurred. Not the a-hole, your primary caregiver just up and vanished for half an hour with no explanation or way of contacting her. That's not really something a caregiver should be doing because emergencies can happen and she's responsible for making sure you're safe. And even if calling the police was the wrong thing to do, it would at worst be an overreaction and not an a-hole move. Not the a-hole, sounds like you were scared. I'm glad nothing bad happened. I bet if you both talked it out, she would understand that you weren't just scared for yourself, but her as well. Unfortunately, the non-emergency person that showed up was probably in a bad mood and took it out on your mom, who was probably already frazzled by the lack of cat food and leaving her phone at home. You did the right thing. You were scared and you did what you thought was best in your height of emotion. Totally understandable.